On board the starship Orion, the engines hummed softly as the ship sailed through the vast, dark space. Orion was not an ordinary vessel. It was a military ship built for deep space missions with advanced technology. Among its brave crew was a talented human engineer named Alex. Alex was known for his clear mind and steady hands. He could fix almost any problem that arose with the ship's intricate systems, and his calm nature brought comfort during difficult times. Alex spent long hours in the engine room, studying blueprints and ensuring that every piece of machinery functioned properly. His life revolved around order, precision, and the quiet hum of the ship's circuits. Even though he worked alone most of the time, he always believed that every problem had a solution if one looked closely enough. On the same ship, there was another crew member who could not have been more different. Her name was Lyra, an alien seductress from a distant, colorful world. Lyra was known not only for her striking beauty, but also for her warm smile and gentle nature. She came from a culture that valued connection and intuition. Her presence on the Orion was a mystery to many. Some wondered why a person with such a free spirit was chosen for a military mission, while others admired the unique qualities she brought to the crew. Fate intervened when Alex and Lyra were assigned to share the same living quarters. The small, cramped room forced them to spend every moment together, a situation neither had anticipated. Alex, who preferred silence and order, found it challenging to adjust to Lyra's lively and warm personality. Lyra, on the other hand, missed the open spaces of her home world and felt a tinge of melancholy in the cold metal room. In the beginning, the two experienced many awkward moments. Alex's habit of organizing his tools meticulously clashed with Lyra's more relaxed approach to her belongings. Simple things, like the way the light from the window hit a stray paper or the hum of a distant machine, sparked small disagreements. Yet, as the days passed, these minor conflicts slowly began to fade. They started to share snippets of their lives. Alex spoke about his love for solving puzzles and his passion for making machines work perfectly. Lyra told stories of her home world, of warm evenings filled with music and laughter, and of a life where beauty and emotion guided every action. Their conversations, although filled with differences, helped them understand that both of them cared deeply about the ship and its mission. The challenges of living together also taught them a great lesson. Even the most unlikely pair could learn from one another. In that small room, under the constant watch of the stars, Alex and Lyra began to see that their differences might be the key to making Orion stronger. They slowly forged a bond based on respect, understanding, and the shared goal of keeping their ship safe during its long journey through space. Alex sat on his side of the small room, his hands busy organizing a set of tools he had carefully laid out. The tiny space felt even smaller when shared with someone who didn't seem to care about rules or organization the way he did. Every time he picked up a tool or used a piece of equipment, he made sure it was in its proper place. He lived by the idea that things should be where they belonged or chaos would follow. Despite the peaceful hum of the ship around them, Alex found it hard to focus with Lyra constantly moving about the room with no clear sense of order. Lyra, on the other hand, moved effortlessly through the small warehouse they called a room. She was charming, her presence like a peaceful breeze that never seemed to disturb anything. But to Alex, it felt like a whirlwind. After spending so much time alone, he found it uncomfortable to share such a small space with someone who was so different. Everything about her seemed to contradict his way of living. She never worried if her clothes were folded neatly, or if her books were stacked in an exact order. She walked through life with a relaxed confidence, her smile lighting up the room whenever she spoke. Some might call it easygoing, but to Alex, it felt chaotic. One morning, as Lyra hummed a soft song to herself, she accidentally knocked over a stack of papers that Alex had carefully organized. The scattered sheets spread across the floor like a small but growing problem. Alex froze in frustration, his eyes fixed on the mess. Lyra quickly moved to pick them up, a genuine apology on her lips. "I'm so sorry, Alex," she said, her voice light and unburdened. I didn't mean to mess with your work." Alex opened his mouth to respond, but as he looked at her apologetic face and the way she effortlessly moved to fix the small mistake, something inside him softened. Perhaps she didn't understand the importance of order in the way he did, but her sincerity made him pause. "It's okay," Alex said after a moment, putting aside his anger. "Just be careful next time." It was the first time in days that he had said something close to kind. Lyra smiled brightly, her eyes gleaming with happiness. In her own way, she had shown him something valuable. People didn't have to be exactly the same to get along. She had a way of making life enjoyable, even in the small, cramped space they had to share. As the days went on, Alex began to notice more of the little things that Lyra did. Whether it was her way of making the room feel brighter with just her presence, or the way she hummed softly when she was thinking, Alex couldn't help but grow a bit fond of the easygoing alien. Lyra, too, started to notice the small differences about Alex. She realized he wasn't worried about chaos or mess for the joy of it. It was just the way his mind worked. The more she observed, the more she understood that his focus and precision were what kept everything around them stable, something to which she had never paid attention before. Slowly, the tension between them started to ease. They didn't exactly become best friends overnight, but they began being more comfortable in each other's space. Both Alex and Lyra knew that this was only the beginning of a journey, not just in space, but in learning how two very different people could share their lives aboard the same ship. For 40 seconds, on the starship Orion, the shared quarters grew to be a small stage for two very different lives. Alex, the human engineer, was a man of order and precision. Every morning he rose at the same time, and every tool in his kit had a proper place. His uniform was always neat, and his work was done with care and attention to detail. Alex believed that life could be managed with logic and clear rules. Lyra, the alien seductress, was a stark contrast to him. Coming from a warm and colorful world, she carried herself with a relaxed grace. Her belongings were spread out in an artistic manner that Alex found chaotic. Lyra preferred spontaneity over routine, and she often followed her feelings rather than a strict plan. For her, life was a series of moments to enjoy, not problems to solve. Their differences were not hidden. Every day, small disagreements would spark in the cramped quarters. For example, Alex would often tidy up after dinner, lining utensils in perfect rows, while Lyra would leave them in unusual arrangements that made sense only to her. These small acts of defiance felt like a challenge to the careful order that Alex held dear. In the early days of their stay, tension filled the air. Alex would sometimes grow frustrated when he could not find his favorite tool because it had been moved by Lyra. Lyra, in turn, felt restricted by Alex's strict need for order. She would often hum soft melodies from her home world, a sound that reminded her of freedom and warmth. To Alex, the melody was a strange distraction, a noise that disrupted the silence he treasured. Despite these differences, both began to see hints of the other's strength. Alex noticed that Lyra's free spirit could bring creative solutions when his methods failed. On one occasion, a piece of machinery malfunctioned in a way that puzzled even the best of his calculations. Lyra, with her intuitive approach, suggested a solution that was unusual but effective. This moment showed Alex that there was more than one way to solve a problem. At the same time, Lyra observed that Alex's methodical nature kept the ship running smoothly. His care in maintaining the systems was a sign of his deep commitment to the mission. She realized that while his ways were different from hers, his dedication was just as strong. In this small living space, the clash of their worlds was constant. But with every disagreement, there was also a lesson learned. The engineer and the seductress began to understand that their differences could be a source of strength. Each day they grew a little more patient, a little more willing to see the value in the other's way of life. Their shared space on the Orion became a symbol of balance, a place where logic and passion met, and where two very different approaches to life began to blend into something new and hopeful. together. The day began like any other aboard the starship Orion. Alex was busy in the engine room, carefully checking the panels and running routine diagnostics. His steady hands moved over the controls as he ensured every system worked as it should. At the same time, Lyra was in the shared quarters, quietly humming a tune from her home world while arranging her personal items in her own unique way. The calm was soon interrupted by a loud, unexpected alarm that echoed through the corridors of the ship. The alarm startled everyone on board. Red lights began flashing, and a low, persistent hum filled the air. Alex's heart raced as he quickly left the engine room. He moved with urgency through the hallways, following the trail of alarms and flashing indicators. In the shared quarters, Lyra too sensed that something was very wrong. With a graceful urgency, she gathered her belongings and hurried out, her eyes wide with concern. Outside, the crew was gathering in small groups, murmuring about the strange signals and system failures. The usual order of the Orion had been shattered by an unknown crisis. Alex soon reached the command center, where senior officers were trying to make sense of the chaos. A deep voice from the main console announced that a ship-wide anomaly had been detected. The ship's vital systems were acting unpredictably, and the anomaly threatened the life support system and other critical functions. Without delay, Alex volunteered to help. His expertise in engineering was needed now more than ever. Lyra, who had a keen sense of intuition and an unusual understanding of alien technology, also stepped forward. Although their earlier differences had caused small conflicts, both knew that they had to put aside their personal issues and work together to solve this emergency. Alex and Lyra quickly joined the team assigned to address the anomaly. Alex's fingers flew over the controls as he examined the data streaming in from every corner of the ship. He identified irregular power surges and unexpected fluctuations in the energy grid. Lyra, on her side, used her unique intuition to sense where the anomaly's effects were strongest. Together, they began to form a plan. They decided to split up the tasks. Alex worked to stabilize the power system, carefully rerouting energy through alternate circuits. Meanwhile, Lyra focused on the life support system, where the anomaly was causing dangerous drops in oxygen levels. Her gentle voice and calm demeanor helped ease the mounting panic among the crew. As hours passed, both began to see signs of improvement. The red lights softened, and the hum of the alarms began to fade. The crisis was far from over, but the combined efforts of Alex and Lyra had shown promise. Their teamwork brought hope to the crew, proving that even in the face of a sudden, unknown threat, different strengths could come together to save the day. The crisis had forced them to rely on each other, and in doing so, they started to see that their unique skills might be the key to protecting the Orion and its crew from future dangers. After the crisis, the ship slowly returned to normal, but the work was far from over. In the quiet aftermath, Alex and Lyra found themselves in a situation where they could no longer ignore the need to work together. The emergency had taught them that their different skills were both important. Now they set out to find a new way to combine their talents for the benefit of the entire crew. Alex spent long hours in the engineering bay, studying the ship's schematics and trying to understand the strange anomaly that had disrupted the systems. His mind was precise and focused, and he believed that every problem had a clear, logical answer. Yet, as he worked through complicated circuits and puzzling energy patterns, he realized that the usual methods were not enough this time. Lyra, on the other hand, moved through the corridors of the Orion with an almost intuitive grace. She had a natural ability to sense where something was wrong even when it was not visible to the eye. Her ideas were unconventional, drawn from experiences on her home world where technology and life were intertwined with art and emotion. Lyra believed that sometimes solutions came from listening to the subtle whispers of the machine rather than following strict manuals. One quiet evening, as Alex pored over data in the engine room, he noticed a small irregularity in the energy readings. Frustration and curiosity filled him, and he decided to seek Lyra's advice. Hesitantly, he knocked on the door of their shared quarters and found her gently adjusting a set of delicate alien tools that she used to communicate with the ship's system. "Lyra," he began, "I found something odd in the power grid. I think there might be a pattern here, but I cannot put it into words." Lyra looked up, her eyes soft with interest. "Show me what you have," she said, her voice calm and inviting. Together, they reviewed the data. Alex explained his calculations and theories, while Lyra listened and then suggested a different angle, a pattern that resonated with the natural rhythms of the ship. Over the next few days, the two began to work closely. Alex would map the hard data, and Lyra would observe the flows and vibrations in the systems, using her unique methods. They held long discussions in the quiet hours of the night, sharing ideas and testing small adjustments on the control panels. Their conversations were patient and respectful, each word building trust between them. Slowly, their work began to show results. The anomaly's effects diminished, and the ship's systems stabilized. The crew noticed that the Orion seemed to run smoother than before. Alex realized that Lyra's intuitive ideas had filled gaps in his logic, and Lyra appreciated how Alex's precise calculations turned her abstract thoughts into practical solutions. In that busy, hopeful time, Alex and Lyra discovered that their differences were not a weakness but a powerful asset. Their unlikely collaboration proved that when reason and intuition join forces, even the most challenging problems can be solved. Together, they not only fixed the ship but also laid the foundation for a lasting partnership that would help the Orion face any future crisis. The days passed, and the Orion sailed smoothly through deep space. The crisis had been a turning point, forcing Alex and Lyra to work together. Now, their collaboration was no longer just a necessity. It was becoming something deeper. Their time spent in the shared quarters felt different. The silence that once held tension now carried a quiet understanding. One evening, after a long shift in the engine room, Alex returned to their quarters. He found Lyra sitting by the small window, gazing at the stars outside. The soft glow of distant galaxies reflected in her alien eyes, making her look almost otherworldly. "You always look at the stars like they have a secret," Alex said as he placed his toolkit on the desk. Lyra smiled and gestured for him to sit. "In my world, we believe that every star is a story. Some shine brighter because they have been remembered for generations, while others fade when forgotten." Alex raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Stories? You mean myths?" Lyra shook her head. "Not myths. Memories. We pass them down, not in books, but in songs and dances. Every family has their own constellation, their own history written in the sky." For a moment, Alex considered her words. To him, stars were simply balls of burning gas, mapped out with precision in a ship's navigation system. Yet, hearing Lyra's perspective made him wonder if there was something more to them than just science. "What about you, Alex?" Lyra asked. "What do humans believe about the stars?" Alex exhaled, leaning back. "For us, they're places to explore. We map them, we study them, and one day, we hope to travel beyond them. Space is a puzzle waiting to be solved." Lyra tilted her head. "You see the stars as a challenge. We see them as ancestors. Interesting." For a long time, they talked about their worlds, their people, their dreams. Alex told her about his childhood on Earth, about the first time he fixed a broken radio and realized he wanted to be an engineer. Lyra shared stories of her planet's grand festivals, where light and music filled the air, and how she once danced in the rain of falling flower petals. Despite their differences, they found similarities too. Alex realized that Lyra's love for music was not so different from his love for machines. Both were ways of creating something meaningful. Lyra saw that Alex's structured thinking was not about control, but about protecting what mattered to him. As the conversation continued, the walls between them slowly faded. They were no longer just a human engineer and an alien seductress forced to share space. They were two individuals learning from each other. That night, As the ship drifted through the quiet expanse of space, Alex and Lyra sat side by side, watching the stars. The divide between their worlds felt smaller now, and in the vast loneliness of the universe, they had found something unexpected: understanding. The Orion had been running smoothly for several days after the crisis, thanks to Alex and Lyra's teamwork. However, just when everything seemed to be under control, another problem arose. This time, it was not a simple mechanical failure. It was something more unusual. Late at night, as Alex worked on a minor repair in the ship's control room, a strange fluctuation appeared on his screen. The energy flow in the ship's core was shifting in an unpredictable pattern, something that should have been impossible. The fluctuations weren't strong enough to cause immediate danger, but they were growing. If left unchecked, they could disrupt the ship's power system entirely. Alex frowned, rubbing his temples. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. Lyra, who had just arrived with a cup of warm herbal drink from her home world, peered over his shoulder. "What is it now?" Alex sighed. "Something's wrong with the power core. The energy flow is acting. Alive." Lyra tilted her head, intrigued. "Alive." Alex hesitated. He hated using words like that. Machines followed rules. They didn't behave randomly. Yet, here he was, looking at something that didn't obey any known pattern. Lyra took a sip of her drink, then placed it down. "Maybe it's not just a system failure," she said thoughtfully. "Maybe it's something else." Alex stared at her. "You think this is some kind of presence?" Lyra chuckled. "Not everything can be explained with numbers, Alex. On my world, we believe technology has a spirit, a rhythm. Maybe the ship is trying to tell us something." Alex sighed. "Lyra, I respect your intuition, but this is a machine, not a living being." Lyra leaned closer. "Then let's test it. What if we stop trying to fix it like a machine and listen instead?" It was an odd suggestion, but Alex had learned that sometimes Lyra's strange ideas had value. Begrudgingly, he agreed. Instead of forcing the system to reset, Alex and Lyra began analyzing the energy flow differently. Alex used his technical skills to map out the ship's power patterns, while Lyra focused on the rhythm of the energy itself, as if it were a song. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The fluctuations were not random. They were reacting to something. Alex realized that every time the ship made a course correction, the anomaly grew stronger. "This isn't a system failure," Alex said suddenly. "It's feedback. The ship's core is reacting to the gravitational pull of a hidden celestial body nearby." Lyra smiled. "See, sometimes you don't need to fix things, you just need to understand them." Using this discovery, they adjusted the ship's trajectory, stabilizing the energy flow. Within minutes, the power core returned to normal. Alex leaned back, exhausted but impressed. "I can't believe that worked." Lyra smirked. "Maybe next time, you'll trust my instincts sooner." For the first time, Alex had to admit, sometimes solutions weren't just about logic. The Orion was stable again, thanks to Alex and Lyra's teamwork. Their solution to the strange energy fluctuations had saved the ship, but the experience left Alex with something new. A realization that not everything could be solved with logic alone. Despite their success, the lingering question remained: what had caused the anomaly in the first place? The data suggested that something massive had been affecting the ship's power system, but there were no records of any celestial bodies nearby. One evening, while Alex was adjusting a few remaining power circuits, Lyra entered the room and sat beside him. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you?" she asked, crossing her legs. Alex sighed, running a hand through his short hair. "I like to have answers. I don't like mysteries when it comes to my ship." Lyra chuckled softly. "You call it your ship now." Alex smirked. "I spend more time fixing it than sleeping in my own bed. Feels like mine." Lyra nodded, understanding. She knew how much Alex cared about the Orion. His dedication to the ship wasn't just about duty, it was personal. That was something she admired about humans. They didn't just survive. They made things their own. Just as they were about to continue their conversation, the ship suddenly shook. A loud alarm blared through the corridors, and the lights flickered. Alex's instincts kicked in immediately. He rushed to the control panel, scanning the systems. "We're losing power again," Alex muttered, his fingers flying over the console. "This isn't normal. It's happening too fast." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "What do you need me to do?" Alex hesitated. Usually, he worked alone when it came to engineering problems. But Lyra had proven herself more than once. This time, he had to trust her completely. "Take control of the energy regulators," Alex said. "I need to reroute the backup systems, but if the core destabilizes, we'll lose everything." Lyra nodded, quickly moving to the secondary console. Her fingers danced across the interface, adjusting the ship's energy output based on instinct rather than calculation. Alex, on the other hand, relied on precise data, carefully balancing the power to prevent an overload. The seconds felt like hours. The ship trembled under the strain, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if they might lose control. But then, Lyra's voice rang out. "Alex, the energy waves follow the rhythm, not the numbers." It didn't make sense, but he trusted her. Adjusting the systems based on the fluctuations instead of rigid calculations, he made the final correction. The ship steadied. The alarms went silent. The lights returned to normal. Breathing heavily, Alex turned to Lyra. "We did it." Lyra grinned. "I knew you'd listen to me eventually." For the first time, Alex realized that trust wasn't just about skill. It was about believing in someone even when their methods were different. And for the first time, he didn't mind admitting that he trusted Lyra completely. The Orion was back to normal again, but something had changed between Alex and Lyra. The crisis had forced them to rely on each other in ways they never expected. Before, they had been two individuals trying to survive in a shared space. Now, they were a team. Alex no longer saw Lyra as just an alien seductress with strange ideas. She had proven herself capable, intelligent, and, though he wouldn't say it out loud, someone he respected. Lyra, on the other hand, had gained a new appreciation for Alex's way of thinking. She still believed in intuition, but she saw the beauty in his precision, his dedication, and the quiet way he cared about the ship and its crew. One evening, after another long shift, they found themselves back in their shared quarters. Lyra sat cross-legged on her bed, casually tossing a small glowing sphere between her fingers, a device from her homeworld that pulsed with soft light. Alex sat at his desk, fixing a small circuit board, his hand steady as always. "You know," Lyra said, breaking the silence, "I never thought I'd say this, but I like working with you." Alex smirked, not looking up from his work. "That almost sounds like a compliment." Lyra grinned. "It is. Don't let it go to your head." Alex set down his tools and finally met her gaze. "You surprised me, Lyra. When we first got assigned to the same quarters, I thought we'd drive each other crazy." Lyra laughed. "Oh, we definitely did. You with your boring routines and perfect tool arrangements. And you with your clutter and singing at random times," Alex countered. Lyra gasped in mock offense. "My singing is beautiful." Alex rolled his eyes but smiled. For the first time, their teasing felt natural, not like a battle for control. A moment of comfortable silence settled between them. Then Lyra asked, "Do you ever wonder why we were assigned together?" Alex leaned back, thinking. Maybe someone on this ship thought we could learn something from each other. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "And did we?" Alex nodded. "Yeah, I think we did." Lyra stretched and stood up, tossing the glowing sphere toward him. He caught it instinctively, watching the soft light pulse in his hand. "In my culture, we exchange these when we respect someone," she explained. "It's a symbol of balance." Alex turned the sphere in his palm, feeling its warmth. "So this means we're balanced." Lyra smirked. It means I don't completely hate sharing a room with you. Alex chuckled. High praise. As the Orion sailed through the stars, the lines between logic and intuition, control and freedom, human and alien blurred just a little more. Alex and Lyra were no longer just crewmates. They were something more. A partnership built on differences, strengthened by trust, and ready for whatever the universe had in store. The Orion had survived more than one crisis, but the ship wasn't in perfect shape. Deep inside the engine room, hidden away in the complex machinery, a final problem remained, one that had gone unnoticed until now. Alex had spent the last few days running detailed diagnostics, searching for any remaining damage. What he found was worse than expected. A crucial energy stabilizer deep in the core had been weakened. If it failed, the entire power grid could collapse, leaving the ship stranded in space. We have a serious problem, Alex told Lyra as they reviewed the data in their shared quarters. The stabilizer isn't holding energy the way it should. If it breaks down completely, we'll lose everything: life support, navigation, even emergency systems. Lyra frowned, tapping a finger against the screen. Can't you just replace it? Alex sighed. Not that simple. We don't have a spare, and fixing it while the ship is running is nearly impossible. One wrong move, and we could cause an overload. Lyra thought for a moment, then smiled. Then let's not make a wrong move. Alex blinked. That's your plan? She laughed. No, my plan is to do this together. You handle the technical side, and I'll focus on the energy flow. He hesitated. It was a dangerous repair. If something went wrong, it wouldn't just damage the ship, it could put them both in danger. But after everything they had been through, Alex knew one thing for sure. He trusted Lyra. All right, he said. Let's do this. Into the core. The engine room was eerily quiet when they arrived. The ship's heartbeat, a soft hum of energy flowing through the walls, felt uneven, like a song that had lost its rhythm. Alex climbed into the maintenance shaft, Lyra following close behind. The stabilizer was buried deep in the ship's systems, surrounded by hot, humming circuits. The heat was intense, sweat forming on Alex's forehead as he carefully examined the damaged component. It's worse than I thought, he muttered. I need to recalibrate it manually. If I move too fast, it'll overload. Lyra crouched beside him, placing a hand near the stabilizer without touching it. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening. Let me guide you, she whispered. Follow my rhythm. Alex didn't question it. As he adjusted the stabilizer, Lyra spoke softly, directing him like a conductor leading an orchestra. He timed each movement with her words, letting her instinct balance his precision. The ship trembled as energy surged through the system. Lights flickered, and for a second, Alex thought they had failed. But then, stability. The hum of the Orion's engine became steady once more. Alex exhaled in relief. We did it. Lyra grinned. Told you we wouldn't make a wrong move. As they climbed back up, Alex looked at her and realized something. Lyra wasn't just his unexpected roommate anymore. She was his partner in every sense of the word. With the stabilizer repaired, the Orion returned to smooth sailing. The danger had passed, but something had fundamentally changed. Alex and Lyra were no longer just crewmates forced to share quarters. Over time, their differences had evolved into a mutual respect that surprised them both. As they sat together in the common room, Lyra glanced out the window at the endless stretch of stars. You know, she said, I never thought I'd get along with someone like you. Alex smirked. Someone like me. You're all rules and logic, Lyra replied with a grin. I thought you'd never listen to anything I said. Alex leaned back in his chair, considering her words. I admit, I had my doubts about you at first. All that talk about intuition and rhythm. I thought it was nonsense, but you proved me wrong. Lyra laughed softly. Don't get used to it. I don't like being predictable. Their light banter carried the weight of the trials they'd faced together. They had come a long way from their initial frustrations. In a ship full of challenges, they had forged an unlikely alliance. "I think the crew noticed," Lyra said after a moment. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Noticed what?" "That we've become a team," she explained. "They trust us. Even the captain mentioned it." "Not surprising," Alex replied. "When you fix a ship-wide power crisis and prevent the ship from exploding, people tend to appreciate you." Lyra smiled. "And when you work together, even better." Alex nodded. He knew she was right. They had both brought something unique to the table. Alex's methodical problem-solving and Lyra's instinctive approach. Together, they had turned difficult situations into successes. The future of their journey on the Orion seemed brighter now. They had proven that they could handle anything the galaxy threw at them, as long as they worked together. Even if more challenges lay ahead, they were ready. "Well," Lyra said, stretching. "What now?" Alex gave her a rare grin. "Now we keep the ship running, of course." She rolled her eyes. "You're so practical." "I meant, what's next for us?" Alex paused. It was a good question. Their partnership had grown beyond fixing machinery or solving anomalies. They had found trust, understanding, and even friendship. "Whatever comes next," Alex said, "we'll face it together." Lyra smiled at that, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "I like the sound of that." The Orion continued its journey through the stars, but Alex and Lyra were no longer just two strangers in a cramped room. They were partners, allies, and perhaps even something more. In the vastness of space, they had found a connection that neither of them had expected. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, they knew that whatever lay ahead, they were ready for it, together.